Hello, everyone in the audience today. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us for Payroll for Construction webinar discussing how Davis-Bacon is changing and are you still compliant? Also going to give an overview of how our payroll services can help track, manage the ever-changing Davis-Bacon rules, revisions that were just put into effect as of yesterday here. All attendees that are in the audience today, this is a listen-only webinar broadcast. So as I go through the presentation, feel free to go ahead and throw any questions into the chat there. And my associate, Jim Welsh, will be answering any questions there behind the scenes, as well as if any of those verbal that we want to kind of answer for the rest of the audience, we'll handle those towards the end of the demonstration discussion today. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump right into it. My name here, Alex Gray, one of the regional sales managers here at Payroll for Construction. Like I just mentioned, Jim Welsh, another member of our team, other regional sales manager here for the Payroll for Construction team, will be handling any of those questions that are thrown in the chat. So feel free to go ahead and throw those in as we go along here. But without further ado, we'll jump right into it. So Davis-Bacon Act. Before we jump into those changes, kind of want to just go ahead and give a little history lesson of the Davis-Bacon Act. So signed into law on March 3rd of 1931, and what the Davis-Bacon Act requires is the minimum payment of prevailing wage rates as determined by the Department of Labor Wage and Hour Division to all laborers and mechanics on federal government construction projects in all 50 states and the District of Columbia for contracts in excess of $2,000. The Department of Labor has published instructions and rules in the Code of Federal Regulations providing guidance for wage determinations, certified payroll reporting, labor standards, and contract responsibilities. So the Davis-Bacon Act was designed to counter various practices which occurred in the wake of rapid expansion of construction projects. Contractors in cheaper labor areas were able to underbid contractors where a higher wage rate prevailed and essentially import their own workforce, resulting in the local labor unemployment. Local contractors weren't able to compete against those for jobs in their own region, so the Davis-Bacon Act was created. Recent updates to the Act came from the first comprehensive regulatory review in nearly 40 years. These revisions to the regulations will help promote compliance, provide appropriate and updated guidance, and enhance the usefulness in today's modern economy. So with these recent updates, the updates itself are over 800 pages long, and today with the half-hour webinar, we obviously aren't going to have enough time to cover all of the major changes, but what we went ahead and did was picked out 4 of the major ones that we found here at Payroll for Construction to keep our clients and those that are interested in our services updated with the ever-changing rules and regulations in the industry, where with these major changes, Department of Labor came up with a new definition of prevailing wage and determining wage rates, as well as now we can have the adoption of wage rates set by state and local governments, have some guidelines set forth of how state and local governments can set and determine those prevailing wages. Also, when prevailing wages must be updated on a specific project, as well as increased record-keeping requirements for our employees, as well as other information related to that project. The overall final rule went into effective date of yesterday, October 23rd of 2023, and will now be in effect moving forward. So first one that we're going to jump into then, the determining of the prevailing wage rate. So again, the Department of Labor has redefined the term prevailing wage and returned to a 3-step process for determining what the wage rate will be for classifications in certain areas. The first, if the majority of workers, at least 50% in that classification area, both union and non-union workers are paid at the same rate, that rate will be the prevailing wage rate. The second, if in that specific area no majority rate exists, at least 30%, then the wage rate paid to at least 30% of workers in that classification area will become the prevailing wage rate. Then the third, if the first 2 do not qualify, if no wage rate is paid to at least 30% of workers in that area, then the overall weighted average rate in that classification is considered to be the prevailing wage rate. And employers can obtain wage rates by submitting a request to the National Prevailing Wage Center or use other legitimate sources of information online, such as the online wage library and other portions and spots where we can pull that prevailing wage information. Now, with those determining of the prevailing wage rates, with the revisions, that also goes into the adoption of wage rates. So with these new provisions to this act, this is going to allow the Department of Labor to adopt wage rates that are set forth by state and local governments, given that these 4 criteria below are met with the setting of those prevailing wage rates. The first is if the state or the local government must set the prevailing wage rates, and those rates that are set, they must collect relevant data using a survey or other process that is open to full participation of contractors that are providing that prevailing wage data. The second, that state or local wage rate must reflect both a basic hourly rate of pay and any locally prevailing wage bona fide fringe benefits, and each of these must be able to be calculated separately. So that basic hourly rate of pay and any fringe benefits need to be broken out and must be able to be calculated separately as set forth by that state and local government. The third here, the state or local government must classify laborers and mechanics in a manner that is recognized within the field of construction. So typical naming conventions for those classifications need to be set forth by those state and local governments when providing those prevailing wage rates as well as fringe benefits. And the fourth, the overall criteria for setting the prevailing wage rates need to be substantially similar to the Department of Labor's criteria that we had just covered on the previous slide. So with those, with these state and local governments, essentially they are able to provide surveys and other processes of collecting information for what those prevailing wage rates are in that specific area, and then set forth those wage rates for that specific area to the Department of Labor to adopt. And these rates are still looking to be controlled on a specific area, county by county basis. If there is no overall majority in a specific county in a specific state, they are able to then pull information from surrounding counties or any specific county located into that state to then go into determining the prevailing wage rates for that specific area. The next change that we're going to jump into is going to be the updating of prevailing wage rates on specific projects. So previously, generally prevailing wage determinations apply for the life of the project or contract and do not need to be updated during the course of said project. So that original contract, those prevailing wage rates would be good for the life of that entire project. Under the new final rule in these revisions, contracts that are changed to include additional or substantial construction, alterations, and or repair work that was not originally defined within the scope of the original contract, they must include the most recent wage determination at the time of the contract change. So for those in the audience, my example today, we took on a building of a new airport terminal project here. And halfway, a few months into the project, we realized that, hey, an additional wing is going to be added on to that terminal project. That contract is then updated. Any work that is being performed against that additional work that was added on to that original contract must include the most recent wage determination at the time of contract change. And also, as we get into this discussion, we'll cover how payroll for construction will be able to handle the updating of those changes. But a big change with these contracts is any additional substantial construction that is added, the additional work needs to be included with the most recent wage determination at that specific time of contract change. Now, current wage determinations will still apply for the life of contracts created on or before October 23rd, 2023, yesterday's effective date of these new final rules. But again, if any major revisions, updates are made to those original contracts that were created before October 23rd, the most recent wage determinations need to be applied to those contract changes. Then one of the last major updates that we'll cover here today is going to be record-keeping changes. So with these revisions as well, they require that payroll and other basic record information must be kept for at least 3 years following completion of all work on the prime contract. So if we have a job that lasts a year long, once that contract is closed, if that project has been completed, 3 years from the final date of the closing of that project, all payroll and basic records need to be kept for at least 3 years on file, everything that relates to that project. Major additions to the following information that must be kept on file for each worker, and again, this is going to follow that 3-year timeline, is all employees that worked on that project. We need to track their last known telephone number, their last known email address, every correct classification that employee performed work on that specific project, as well as treat and track all hours worked under each classification for that specific prevailing wage contract. Then also requires that contractors and subcontractors must maintain Davis-Bacon contracts, subcontracts, and all related documents for the same 3-year post-project completion deadline. So a big thing is, again, tracking the information for our team members, everything that we have going on with these Davis-Bacon prevailing wage contracts, job projects. We're going to need to keep that information on file for at least 3 years following the end date, the completion of that specific contract here. Now, we covered the changes here, and let's go into how payroll for construction can help here. Now, I do know that we have some payroll for construction foundation clients joining us for today's webinar, so some of you already have the power of what we're able to do to help manage these changing rules and regulations to the Davis-Bacon Act. But to kind of give an overview, an introduction into payroll for construction, we're going to be a standalone payroll service only working for contractors in the construction industry. We're an online payroll service provider processing payroll in all 50 states, and we specialize in union government prevailing wage payroll, where we're going to be able to handle the paying of your employees via check direct deposit, all tax filings and payments, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual tax filings and payments for any federal, state, local authorities, FUTA and SUTA, as well as the filing and distribution of employee W-2s come year end. But what we're also going to be able to do is we're going to be able to automate reports such as certified payroll, union reporting, EEO, minority compliance reports, as well as any job costing reports that your team may need to run for those projects. What also separates us from other services out there is we're powered behind the scenes by Foundation Software, a full job cost ERP accounting software with over 35 years of experience in the construction industry. Now, how is payroll for construction going to be able to help with the items that we discussed today, those changes? One, we're going to be able to handle construction-specific reporting. So whether you're working in one state, multiple states, or my contractors that are working in states such as Ohio, Kentucky, where we have multiple localities that we have employees working under in a specific day or even a week there. We're going to be able to have that information tracked and broken out and handle the reporting of that information over to the specific states as well as localities. And what the system is also going to do, it's going to automate those pay rates for our prevailing wage jobs. We can have those broken out by job and have them automated by specific classification that our employees are working under on that said project. So as hours are coded into the system, going to be able to look at that project, look at the employee's classification, and automatically pull in the corresponding required rate of pay. As well as too, if you have employees that are already being paid above scale, that prevailing wage rate, the system will be able to pull in the higher of the two corresponding rate if our employees are already meeting the prevailing wage base payment requirements per their private commercial rate of pay, for example here. Then along with those pay rates comes the fringe calculation. So we'll also have a separate table to set up that fringe information, whether we're just paying these fringes as cash into the employee's paychecks or working with some sort of fringe benefit group. We're going to be able to handle the automated calculation of these fringes and have, again, as we're coding hours in, automatically track where we stand with our fringe information, and also be able to handle a prevailing wage fringe reduction factor or a fringe credit. If we're already offering benefits to these employees and so we're not overpaying when it comes to those fringes, be able to set up a fringe reduction factor to help essentially track, and so we're not overpaying, automate the tracking of our fringe information. Then the last point here, workers' compensation. We'll have your workers' compensation policy set up inside the database. Now, even though we don't handle the paying of workers' compensation here, we know how big of a part it is of those payroll runs, so we can have those tracked, broken out by the types of classes, the types of work that's being performed by our team members there, and can even set up caps to what's ultimately being exposed to our workers' compensation policy. Then going hand in hand with that construction specific payroll, the items that we're going to handle, we're also going to be able to provide that construction specific reporting. So a big one with that Davis-Bacon Act, going to be that certified payroll reporting, those prevailing wage projects, where we're going to have over 40 different state agency specific formats available in the print. You can go ahead, generate that certified payroll report, PDF, sign, pull it outside the system, send it off where it needs to go. Or also, we're able to create the electronic upload file for online for things like the LCP tracker, California DIR, EMARS. If we're using any electronic portals uploading online for those certified payroll reports, going to be able to have the system generate those. And also, with the new requirements for keeping this information, our records related to those projects for up to 3 years post-project completion, inside of our system, you're able to go back in and pull a certified payroll report for any specific date range that we need. So if we're being required to go back 2 years and pull our prevailing wage projects for our job 12, our airport job, for example, that's not going to be a problem with our system. You go in, you enter the date range, you can access that certified payroll report at any point in time. We're also going to be able to handle the construction specific reporting of any unions. So whether you're working with one union, multiple unions, we're going to be able to enter that union contract inside the system, have that information automatically tracked of what's going on per our paying of our union employees, as well as any union benefits. All this information is automatically tracked that when it comes time to make the payments to our unions, have a report available that shows us our overall bottom line, so we can pull that out, cut the check, send it off, our union is then paid. Then the third point here, employee information tracking. So like we had mentioned with those changes, we're going to have to keep on file information for 3 years of employees' last known email address, last known telephone number, as well as the breakdown of those hours and classifications that they had worked on those specific projects. So within our system, going to be able to set up, become the system of record for those employees and have employee reports that can be pulled at any point in time to access that employee information, as well as what they were doing on our specific job projects. Have our reports able to be filtered, sorted by the criteria of what we need to pull. Hey, I need to see what Rick did 2 years ago on this specific prevailing wage project. Very easy to go in and generate and pull those reports at any point in time inside of our system. Then the other points here, minority compliance EEO reports. So no matter if you're handling print formats or also have electronic formats that we can handle the creation of the file to upload online, handle those minority compliance EEO reports, as well as any job labor, burden cost reporting, workers' compensation. If we have any 401k providers we're working with, health insurance, handle the tracking of those deductions, have reports to see where we stand with those vendors, as well as any employee court-ordered garnishments, child support, alimony, tax garnishments, be able to set those garnishments up to be automatically withheld from the employee's pay, and can choose to have our team handle the sending of the reporting of those garnishments if you wanted to outsource those to the payroll for construction team as well. What else makes us different here at Payroll for Construction? We're going to have a direct integration with QuickBooks, Foundation, Sage, and other accounting programs. So with Payroll for Construction, our system would become the system of record for employees and that payroll information. So payroll is ran through the Payroll for Construction system. Then using our QuickBooks integration tool, Sage, Sage integration file, or built directly into that Foundation system. Payroll is processed through our database, then use the integration tool to pass that information back into your whatever accounting system you are utilizing there. So be able to essentially trick your accounting system to thinking payroll was there, but it was ran through Payroll for Construction. And what else makes us different is our only focus here is the construction industry. You're going to have a staff of professionals experienced with only construction payroll available to you Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern, free of charge. You have any questions, issues, you could go ahead, log a ticket, or call in. Our individuals are only trained in-house in our system, only working in the construction industry, so we'll be able to assist and provide guidance to what's going on with those payroll runs or inside your payroll system. Now, we also do offer a mobile application for field time card entry for employee hours. But if you're also looking to come over to Payroll for Construction and you already have a mobile application that you're working with for field members there, That's not a problem. We have the ability to utilize our time card import feature where hours are then pulled out of some sort of file from that mobile application. You import them into your payroll for construction system. Your hours have that been entered. So if you already are utilizing a mobile application for that team, for your team, we do have the ability to integrate there, but do also offer our own mobile application here at Payroll for Construction. And system service can be web-based access anytime from anywhere with an internet connection. Then also after payroll is processed, we do offer an online stub portal for employees to be able to go in and retrieve those pay stubs electronically if you didn't want any direct deposit stubs getting sent through the mail there. Now, with the presentation here today, as these changes are now in effect, it is always important that the entities communicate with your federal agency partners and legal advisors about whether Davis-Bacon law standards will apply and how these standards will apply for those projects. For more information regarding the final rule and all revisions, please feel free to check out the U.S. Department website. Their Wage and Hours Division have comprehensive breakdowns of all revisions and the final rule that went into effect again yesterday, October 23rd, for that prevailing wage updates here. All right, then what we're going to go ahead and do here, I know some questions were being thrown in the chat as we were going through here. So I want to open it up to questions and answers here. My associate, Jim Welsh, who has also been on the call here, will also be joining me to help answer any questions that do be thrown in. But anyone who has any questions in the audience today, feel free to go ahead and throw them in the chat. Or if you are interested in discussing our payroll services here or have any other questions on the side, both of our contact information is available at the bottom here. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions regarding our services or any of the other information that we may be able to assist with today.
All right, thanks, Alex. This is Jim Welsh, and thank you, everybody, for attending today. Yeah, there's some questions here. The first three right off the bat. So everybody's going to get a copy of the link to this webinar. So you guys all will have access. It looks like Alex has put some links in there. I could be wrong there as he built out the deck here for today, but also I did ask one of our associates here to add this in the webinar deck. So it should be available within here, or she may be putting it somewhere else here. It looks like there should be a handout section that you should be able to get this from. If anybody has an issue, again, email myself or Alex. We can just fire it over to you. But we're trying to make it available right within here. That way it's easy for you to grab. But again, everybody will get a copy of, at least the webinar link and stuff like that. So, all right, it says, somebody's asking here, how will you be able to track the different prevailing wage rates if there is a change order? So in the system, I mean, we can basically, if it's still connected to the same job, what we end up having to do a lot of times is we can create effective dates where, hey, if moving forward, these effective dates are going to change. So starting, on said day or this year, this is what's going to change. And when it's going to change. We have effective dates on our prevailing wage tables. There are sometimes unique situations where maybe a trade class needs to be added where we can have it report on the certified as whatever it needs to be called, but labor-CO with a different schedule of rates for that same job, so it still filters to the same certified payroll report, but we can still tie it to where when it flows through to the certified payroll, it's not going to say that labor-CO. It's more internal tracking, but reporting correctly still on certified. So those things can happen and be easily handled here. Another one, do you give the service of locating crews that can comply with certified payroll? Not so much. I mean, here's the tough part with all this. I mean, this stuff is ever changing. That's why, we put the disclaimer in there and tell you, you really want to look around. I mean, a lot of times there's just, the contractor who handed you the job may not be aware or don't know. They get wrong information. Sometimes we've even found that some of these state and federal sites aren't updated, So there's a lot of moving parts here that make this very difficult, where we tell our clients there are some things we can't save you from, or we can't, prevent there being a mistake on. So that's where if there was a universal database out there that we could plug into, trust me, we would have done this long ago. There's just not. So what we do boast here at Payroll for Construction is that, look, there's going to be mistakes in this payroll. Employees code themselves to the wrong jobs, the wrong work classification, or again, you were handed the wrong work class. I was told that we're going to be laborers. Somebody comes and finds out you're laborers using a special tool, and that changes them to a skilled laborer. Or again, hey, they handed us the old rates. The new rates are different by 25 cents, which we've been on this certified payroll job for, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, that can really cause a back-end nightmare on your payroll and those reports. So with us, again, those effective dates where we can go through and we have what's called a correction genie, where neither you or us have to go through and figure out what employees, what work classes does that affect? How does that affect their pay, our job costing, our taxes, and certified payroll? Because all those things really get affected when those mistakes happen. So with us having those effective dates, correction genies, those are the things that allow us to quickly help our clients rectify those situations so that they can keep moving. Somebody's asking, we just started using Raken for daily logs and timesheets for one of their companies. Do you work with Raken at all? Yeah, we have our own mobile app. We work with just about any of them out there. We like construction specific apps, and Raken is, meaning capturing job, trade, or cost code, employee, start, stop times, hours, shifts. All of those construction specific ones have those elements. So as long as they can export to Excel, text, or CSV, we can easily import that data. And that, again, is a huge piece with payroll for construction, where most of these generic services, if you're doing prevailing wage, even if you find a service that the app can push the data to, if everything is being read off of that employee's record, meaning Bob makes $20 an hour, okay, well, if Bob worked across 3 or 4 prevailing wage jobs in different classes and private jobs, again, that puts the burden on your team to make sure you're manually adjusting and changing those rates, which just is time consuming and leaves even more chance for error. Okay. Change order work can be done in the middle of the job, so both rate would be active, correct? Yes, you could have, again, different classes with different rates, or the same class with a different rate, or effective dates on those tables to handle that stuff. Okay, let's see here. All right, other questions that look like, hold on, I'm getting an update real quick. Left the webinar and logged into the account, hoping to be able to add the handout. Looks like I can't add the presentation while it's running. I'll see if marketing can house. Okay, so we're going to see about pushing this out to everybody. Again, you will get a copy to the link, a link to this webinar. But if you are looking for the deck itself, hopefully we have something worked out. Bear with us for a couple of days, because maybe they're just marketing will mass push something out to all the folks here with it. Because there's quite a few people, a couple hundred people on here, and but if not, if you don't see anything come over in the next couple of days, again, reach out to Alex or myself. We can get you that slide deck, no problem. Okay, I think I might add one more, but let's see here. Okay, it looks like that's it. Again, if you guys are interested, have questions, you can reach out to either one of us. We have territories, but we sit right next to each other. We'll pass it along, so whoever's easiest for you to reach out to, even if you just want pricing or if you want a demo. And then again, last thing I'll leave you with is, look, these rules are ever changing. There's stuff happening in all different areas that drive this. So again, really, make sure when you're dealing with your contractors, or if you're dealing directly with a locality or agency, they should be putting forth those rates. Again, probably plenty of people sitting there saying, well, yeah, they don't always, Jim. And I understand that. And I wish there was a little more clarity there. But the beauty here with us is once you get those things, they can be attached to a job, to, a new change order with different effective rates and stuff. So where I say certified payroll, aside from wrangling in those rates, which again, wish we could help more with, where certified payroll really and prevailing wage really wreak havoc on contractors is 2 areas. The biggest one everybody thinks about is kind of like Alex explained, that back-end compliance reporting, with their name, email, phone number, address, whatever they're asking for, depending on where you're at. But, the actual certified payroll reporting, it's time consuming. So with us being able to do all the different forms or create a file for you to upload to DIR, LCP, EMARS, a bunch of different ones, of course, we streamline that process as well. But the other part, again, is kind of, well, hey, I'm using a mobile app or I'm doing something here where I'm trying to get time into, a system, but the system doesn't recognize rates by job or work class or effective date. That's where you're spending a lot of time having to massage those rates to make sure they're correct. And just the more times you touch them, the more room for error, whereas we can really make life quite a bit better there. So again, appreciate everybody's time today, Alex. Thank you for the great presentation and a lot of the work you did to find some of this stuff. So if anybody needs anything, you feel free to reach out to either one of us. And again, give it a couple days, but our marketing team will figure something out where maybe as we push that link out to with this, we get you a copy of the slide deck as well. So if you don't see anything in the next couple of days, feel free to reach out to us and we'll get you a copy of the slide deck.
Yep. Thank you, Jim. And I will say marketing did just send over an email. Looks like they're going to try and get that URL sent out tomorrow. So participants will receive that follow-up email. And I think we're going to be able to attach a link to the slide deck that was covered today. So those in the audience will get a copy of what we covered today.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Alex. Thank you, everybody, for your time, and wish you all the best.
Thank you, everyone. Everyone have a great rest of their day.